If you did not watch the 8.5 factoring video, you need to stop this video and go to that one first, or else this one will not really make sense. Okay? This is a graphic organizer. You should have this in front of you. Okay? Now, the big question here is, how do I know which factoring method to use? We've learned all of these ways to factor. And so the question is, how do I know? Okay, so this is a graphic organizer to help us. The first and foremost thing you always have to do, look for a GCF. If there's a GCF, take it out. If there's a GCF, take it out. That has to be the first thing. Okay? Now, after that, you have a lot of choices. Okay? The ones that we've learned so far are grouping, and I'm going to call this the Miller method, okay? Miller method, and another trinomial, okay? So those are the ones that we've learned so far. So depending on what you have, those are the ones that you have to do. Now, so let's say you find GCF. If you have 4 terms, you're going to group. Okay, you're going to do a grouping method. Okay, let's look here. This example. Do I have a GCF? No. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm going to group these two. I'm going to group those two. I'm going to find the small GCF first. Turns out a squared is the small GCF. I have 2a minus b left over. In my second small GCF, I have a 5 as a common factor, and so 2a minus b is left over. And so now my big GCF, I have a 2a minus b as my big GCF, and so what's left over in my first group is a squared. What's left over in my second group is a plus 5. Okay, that's grouping. Okay, first step, look for GCF. If you see 4 terms, then you're going to group. I'm going to go to this second column here. Look for a GCF. If you see a trinomial, but your first term has a 1 in front of it, or there's nothing in front of it, then all you're doing is finding factors of C that add up to B. So this is the product. So finding the product of C and the sum of B. Okay, so if you need a reminder of that, here's a couple examples. X squared minus x minus 42. This is x squared minus 1x minus 42. So this is, okay, there's nothing in front. Okay, GCF, is there a GCF? No GCF. I have a trinomial. This doesn't have anything in front of it. So all I'm going to do is find, okay, x squared is x and x. Which numbers break down to negative 42? Gives me a product of negative 42, but gives me a sum of negative 1. Okay, give you 3 seconds to think about it. If you said negative 7 and a positive 6, that's good. Negative 7 times positive 6 gives me a negative 42. Negative 7 plus 6 is a negative 1. Let's go to this next example. 2w squared plus 20w plus 50. Now you might be saying, okay, it's a trinomial, but I have this number here. You're right, but you're forgetting the first step. GCF is 2. So I'm going to pull out a 2, and I have w squared plus 10w plus 25. Okay? And now I really notice that this term doesn't really have anything in front of it. I'll tag on the GCF 2 later. So I'm going to split up my binomial. W squared is w and w. So what 2 numbers gives me a product of positive 25, but a sum of positive 10? Give you 3 seconds to think about that. If you said positive 5, and positive 5. That's good. Now, the GCF that we took out before has to come at the bottom. You can even shorten this. W plus 5 times W plus 5, that is the same thing as 2 times W plus 5 squared, because there's 2 of those. Okay, so just to recap again, look for GCF. If I see a trinomial, and in the trinomial, there's nothing there, okay, there's nothing there, except for that x squared, then just look at the C and B. Now, if you see a GCF, look for that GCF. If you see a trinomial, but now there's an actual thing in front of it, then use the Miller method. Okay, let's look at this example. Look for the GCF. There is a GCF. It's a 3. 3. When I take out a 3, I have 10x squared minus 9x plus 2. Okay, I'll tag that GCF on later. I notice that that is not blank. I have a 10. So I'm going to do the Miller method. Miller method, multiply A and C here, and so I get 20. I'm going to have my binomials, and so I have, and the Miller method, I'm taking this 10x and bringing it here and here. So 10x and 10x. Again, some of you might be saying, wait. 10x times 10x is 100x squared. I know. It'll work out in a little bit. And then, I need you to think about which two numbers gives me a product of positive 20, but a sum of negative 9. Product of positive 20, sum of negative 9. I'm going to give you 3 seconds to think about that. If you said negative 4 and negative 5, that's good. Now, this is in the Miller method where you reduce, kind of like a fraction. Okay, reduce it. 10x minus 4, you can reduce that by 2. When you reduce it by 2, you get 5x minus 2. 10x minus 5, you can reduce that by 5. When you do that, you get 2x minus 1. Now, don't forget, in the beginning, we took out a GCF, and so we have to put the GCF back. And there are my two factors. So, find the GCF, look at what you have, and determine which method you have to do. Now, there's this method called difference of two squares, or difference of squares. We actually have not done that yet. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about it right now. We will talk about that in class later.